If you could just mute yourself, or I can mute you. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm Michelle Nepton, Program Committee and Board Member at GPLH. Welcome to the Grant Professionals of Lower Hudson webinar, How Grant Professionals Can Use AI to Enhance Productivity. I am thrilled to welcome you and our speaker this afternoon, but before I do that, just very briefly, our upcoming programs, which are always free for members, will be a webinar on March 18th, where we welcome our very own Jeffrey Winthal back for Program Evaluation 101. I'm really looking forward to that. And the next Connections call is scheduled for April 16th at 8:30 a.m. We usually switch between 8:30 and 9:30 for those. If you don't know, Connection calls are really informal meetings. They're set in an open forum. It's a Zoom. You can ask questions, get advice from your peers, vent your frustrations. We support each other, and we share what trends we're seeing. So those have been really helpful for me, and I hope for you. If you are not a member and you paid for this event, we will happily apply that fee to your annual membership. So you can go to the website and become a member by using coupon code SAVE30. And Deb's just going to drop that in the chat. Thank you, Deb. I will distribute an email after this with the recording and slides to all registered participants. And these materials, of course, are always available on the GPLH members only section of the website, so you can access that again. I will also send a survey. It will be very quick, brief survey. It helps us to get feedback in the program committee so we can better meet your interests and needs. So please do fill that out. And a couple of house rules. Please mute yourself until the end, unless you're asking a question. Please refrain from using any AI scribes or note-taking softwares. And we will be monitoring the chat for questions throughout the program, but hopefully we have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end as well. All right, with that being said, I'm so excited to introduce today's presenter. Charlie Garg, CFRE, brings over 17 years of corporate and foundation relations experience in the nonprofit sector, having facilitated more than $127 million for leading organizations, including NYU Langone Health, Teachers College at Columbia University, West Point Association of Graduates, the National MS Society, Planned Parenthood, and WestCOP. As Director of Foundation Relations at NYU Langone Health, she has secured transformative 6- and 7-figure grants from national and local foundation partners, including the institution's first ever W.M. Keck Foundation Award. Charlie's deep expertise spans the full grants lifecycle, from prospect research and proposal development to donor stewardship and reporting. She has worked across various sectors, including healthcare, education, and youth services, building strategic relationships with foundation partners and crafting compelling narratives that connect institutional priorities with funder interests. As principal coach and consultant at Middle Branch Consulting since 2008, Charlie has helped numerous nonprofit clients navigate complex funding landscapes, overcome leadership challenges, and build sustainable grants programs. With that, I will hand it over to you, Charlie, and thank you so much again for being here.
Great. Thank you for having me. I think this is really fantastic because it was actually GPLH that got me started as a consultant. Lydia was instrumental in helping me launch my career. So I'm really happy to come and give back as much as I can to this community. I really think that this community, and I think grant professionals in general, are so amazing in our ability to help each other. So my goal for this presentation is to talk about different ways we can use AI in our work to be more productive, to make our lives easier. And I am really hoping, because I know everybody is sort of at different points in their AI journey, I really hope that everybody can come away with at least one good tidbit from this. And as Michelle said, the presentation and the resources that I'm going to share are all going to come to you for your use afterwards. And I am happy to, I do have Q&A built in at the end, but also happy to answer questions as I go through. Since the slide deck is going to be provided to everybody, I may try to move through a little quicker to really give us time for specific Q&A at the end. Okay, so I am now going to share my screen. Okay. Are we good?
We're good.
Okay. All right. So, um, I am going to really be concentrating on using LLMs or large language models, which is, I think, the AI that most people are familiar with when they think of AI, and I think, really applicable for the bulk of the work that happens in grant writing. So there are just hundreds and hundreds of different AI models that specialize in different things because LLMs sort of focus on like the writing aspect, the research aspect, that's really what I'm going to talk about. But there are many models that create websites, that create images, that help with videos. So there's a lot of different models that can still complement the work you're doing. But obviously, in one very short hour, we're going to concentrate on the ones that are sort of most effective. There are many different options within the LLM world. So I think these are the ones that are probably the most popular and that you're probably most familiar with. So we have ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, Perplexity, and Grok. Different models have different strengths and capabilities. So I can tell you in my practice, I use all of these for different things because I'm finding some of them are better than others. Most of them have free versions, which is great because you can try out different versions and see what works best for you. But then most of them also have paid subscriptions that give you more capabilities. So what I've done is I have one paid subscription and I'm currently using free models for other things that's working for me right now. ChatGPT is probably the most familiar one for people, the most well-known. It's very easy to use. Gemini integrates with Google Workspaces. So if you are in a Google universe, this could be a very impactful one for you. Claude is the one that I use most for writing. I find that Claude's writing output, because it comes from an ethical, human aligned format, and we are fundraisers, I find that it gives me the best writing output to work with. Then we have Perplexity, which aggregates a bunch of different models and is very good for research purposes. So I use Perplexity a lot. In my work, I'm doing a lot of very scientifically dense proposals, and I find Perplexity works well for me when I'm trying to break down ideas or understand something better. And then Grok is actually the one that I have the paid version for. And this is purely because my husband has it for his business, and I was able to tag on. What I like about using Grok is it has real-time access. So the other language models tend to lag behind. So if you are looking for absolutely current information on something, that's where Grok is going to stand out. And like I said, there are many, many, many other models that help you do other things to check out. Um, we all know that prompting is really the key to using large language models. So just like humans learning how to do something, AI does better with context. You want to think about exactly what you want AI to help you do, and then craft a prompt that is going to be tailored specifically to what you want. And the more specific you can be, the better your output's going to be. So a very basic prompt example would be write a project summary for this program grant application. You're going to get very basic information. This is very much a garbage in, garbage out type exercise. The more specific you get, the better information. So if you look here at the better prompt, you're helping me write a project summary for a federal education grant application. Then you're providing context, specifically what this project is going to be. You're putting in the requirements that the funder is giving you. for how much space you want to use and what needs to be part of it. And then you're providing it like key elements. So you're providing very specific context requirements and data points, and it is going to give you a much more complete answer to start with. You also want to do iterative prompting. The LLMs continually learn from the information that you're putting into it. So you never really want to use the first output it gives you. You want to fine tune it. And you can see here how the initial prompt is creating a logic model. And then the follow-up refinement, you can see where there are gaps and you can ask for more specific outcomes. You can put in feedback if it's not giving you exactly what you want. You can change the format and you can keep doing this. So again, you never really want to go with your first prompt. You want to keep building it so that you're getting the output you want. I think I have seen for many people that they tend to stop at the more basic approaches. And then they're like, this isn't working. This isn't giving me what I need. But you really have to teach the model and give it the best information for it to be effective for you. Another way to create better output is to create personas. This helps you tap into very specific experience and knowledge that AI is going to pull down from the internet. So when I say creating a persona, you are an experienced fundraiser. You are a data analyst. You are a prospect researcher. You are a grant reviewer. And it will pull context from that persona as it develops its answer. And this just gives you, again, more detail information to get you started on creating personas to help you create better output. And here are just some examples. So if you look, one I use quite often, the fourth one down, you're a program officer at X Foundation. I'm submitting this LOI. What gaps do you see? So it's going to pull information from that foundation's website, and it's going to help you identify strengths and weaknesses in your output, and then you can use that to create, stronger narrative. Now, that's sort of like the simple prompting to get you started. There are more advanced prompting tools. One of them is building a series of prompts that will help you build a better output. This is really good if you're working on something a little more complicated. You don't have to put all of your information, all of your requests in your very first prompt. You have an idea of what you want to end up with, and you do it in these steps. So the sequential build method, you're establishing the role and context and constraints. You are an experienced grant writer and you want to draft an LOI for a funder. The LOI has to be 1 page. The content prompt, specific sections within the example. Then you put in like, in this LOI, I need you to address A, B, and C. After it gives you a draft, you refine it. You adjust the tone, the length, and the focus. I want you to concentrate more on this section and less on this section. And then aligning it. Take this draft LOI and compare it against this foundation's guidelines and mission and tell me what you think should be changed. It's very much, I want to say almost like a partnership you're doing with AI. AI can really be a thought partner in helping you develop very, very high quality materials and output. And here are some sample prompts, for very specific grant related outputs as examples for you here. One of the most efficient ways to ensure high quality outputs using AI is to provide it very specific examples. So you can upload an RFP, you can upload past proposals that have been accepted. Um, you can show it what you're looking for. And you can also show it what you're not looking for. If you have an example of something that's bad, you can also upload that. So it sort of learns both ways. And you can really make it work with your materials. Probably the most common way I am using AI currently is I will take draft narrative, LOIs, proposals, sections from proposals, and I will upload it into AI along with the RFP from the funder. And I will say, analyze this draft against the RFP. Tell me what's missing. Tell me what questions come up for you. And it really helps me support my faculty researchers in fine tuning their material. So I don't know about if anybody else, but in higher ed and academia, because of what's been happening in the federal grants arena, I have many researchers who are taking NIH proposals and they're trying to fit it into private foundation requests. And so there's a lot of stuff that needs to be translated into different formats. So it really saves me time in doing that. And it also really helps me identify, especially more with my junior faculty researchers, what's missing. What questions is the funder asking or looking for that is not being addressed in this draft? And that's something that, again, saves me a ton of time and really helps us develop very high quality proposals. Something else that comes up that, I'm sure most people are familiar with is, some people don't want to use AI because they say, AI hallucinates. AI gives you wrong information. And, I don't know if it's wrong. I don't want to put stuff out there in proposals that's incorrect. So this underscores the imperative that all outputs need to be reviewed for accuracy. You never want to completely trust an output. You always want to reread and check what AI is giving you to make sure it is accurate. But there are ways that you can help fight this um, and combat the hallucinations that AI can do. There's something called the Verify framework, and these are text specific things you can add to a prompt, or even better, add into your AI model's settings. And these will provide instructions for AI. So when it is pulling information that it cannot verify, that is, it is assuming or inferring, it will highlight that for you in the document. So it makes it very clear what you need to double check. And there are, again, here's some more language that you can use that prompts AI to really to pull out information that it is not entirely sure of. So this just, again, it helps you make sure that the information you end up with is completely accurate. This is, again, a template method. If you are providing AI with very specific instructions, it's going to follow those instructions. So if you say, write about childhood obesity statistics, you're going to get a lot of information and it may not be what you're looking for. But if you are giving it the very specific, you want a need statement, you want it in this structure, you want these pieces of information here, that helps it really target the information that it's pulling from. Another way that you can fine tune AI to really be more useful for you is your voice replication techniques. I think this is something that's incredibly helpful for grants consultants, especially when you are working with multiple organizations, but it's obviously, just as useful if you are working in one organization. We talked about, or I talked about, sorry, Using AI for writing is only helpful if the output sounds like you. You don't want it to sound like AI. I've seen funders who have put information in RFPs that they do not want to get materials that have been generated by AI. People take narrative and they run it through to see, if it's likely it's been created by AI. And have people heard about the controversy around the M dash? Seeing an M dash in narrative, that's like a sure sign that it was AI generated, which kills me because I love the M dash and have been using it for years. Um, but you can train AI in your specific voice. And by doing this, what you do is you create concrete examples of how you actually write. So you take past writing product and you upload it into AI so it can learn your specific voice and writing. So, a 3 sample method, you upload 3 examples of your writing, different formats. You have AI analyze that writing, and then you say, write in my voice as you have analyzed. So it's going to pull from the patterns it sees in your product, and it is going to replicate that when it creates new product for you. You can also do this at the organizational level and voice, which is very important. So you can pull brand voice, language style guides that a lot of larger organizations have available and upload it into AI so it uses those. You can also pull in different, inclusivity language that your organization prefers or uses, in its mission. And AI will then pull that when it is creating new narrative for you. And here are some additional ways to help double check and fine tune output to make it better. And again, it's the quality in, quality out. You have to teach it and give it the background information it needs, just like a human, to really be able to give you back the output that is going to be useful and make your life easier. Another tool in AI is projects, which is extremely helpful. Again, I think very helpful for consultants who have multiple clients, but just as useful for anybody working in an organization. It is a great resource that allows you to group together more specific examples, documents, and instructions for an even more tailored experience. In a project, you can provide specific instructions and specific resources. And it can be created for an organization. It can be created for specific actions. So you can have a project that focuses on proposal writing. You can have a project that focuses on prospect research. If you're an organization, community-based organization that works in different areas, you can have a project that focuses on your youth development work. You can have a project that focuses on your work with elderly populations. And you can put, again, very specific instructions and reference materials in that project, and you create chats within that project. So every chat you do in that project is going to pull from those specific resource materials. You can incorporate instructions at the project level. So everything you do within that project, those instructions will be followed across the board. You don't have to repeat them every time you start a new chat. And here's a link to somebody I follow on LinkedIn, who has, really, really great information on how to sort of prep your AI model before you even start prompting. It includes how to do projects. Again, this is more about, putting in your source material, creating chats really within that project itself. And then, just sort of putting it all together, spending time on the front end to go through these steps is going to make your work easier. It's going to allow you to organize yourself better for more efficient output. I know I'm just as guilty as this. When the AI models came out, I was doing everything everywhere. And, now I'm going back and I'm spending the time to create this very specific back end work to make things easier. It gives you more reliable results. Um, Many people stop using AI if they don't feel it's useful or if it's not working correctly for them. But again, you need to teach the models how to provide the work and the output that you want. So here are some common issues that people come up with and some ways to help mitigate those. And then, key takeaways. Strategic prompting, you're going to get better results. Doing the anti-hallucination techniques is going to give you more reliable results that you can count on. Doing voice replication is going to provide you outputs in the language that you need, in the voice you need for your organization. And then being able to take advantage of and utilize projects and custom GPTs, again, is going to make your work more efficient and easier. And then I have some resources that are going to be shared with you afterwards. So let me stop the slideshow and I'll show you these resources and then we can go to questions and just talk about things. So the first resource I have is a master prompt library. This is one of the first things I started doing when I started getting into AI and using it more, is I started pulling together prompts that were useful for me. So I had them and I didn't have to think about it and go back to them. So some of these are very specifically related to grants. There's prompts here for helping you create your voice. There is one to stop AI from hallucinating, and I can tell you, this one specifically, this is the one that I copied and pasted into all of my AI models in the instructions in the settings. And this has been fantastic because when it creates output for me now, it will tell me if it is inferring information from anything. It will tell me if this needs verified. So if there's one thing you take away from this is the one thing I would urge you to do. This is a game changer for me. So again, I'm going to this will be sent to you in a Word document format. So you can keep what's useful for you, you can delete what's not, and you can continue to add new prompts here so you have them available to you. Then I have one that's, again, specific prompts using AI for grant writing. And it goes through, typical scenarios, checking typos, improving readability, and shortening responses. And it will give you example prompts to sort of get you started that you can use as is, or you can fine tune. This one, another person I follow on X who has really good resources. This is more if you're just getting started, and it will talk you through how to do better and better prompting. So you can see, like, initially, this is what you want to do. You're doing slightly more detailed prompts. It's giving you the context role text format. Then you move to few shot prompting, which is where you upload a couple of examples for AI to pull from. Then you start chaining together complex prompts. And then you do mega prompting and then building your prompt library. So I think this is a really useful overview on prompting. This one, again, AI workflows specifically for grant writing. So this will give you language to get started on different workflows that grant writers often use. And then it gives you some prompt recipes down here that I think are very helpful to get you started. And then finally, we didn't really spend a lot of time on this. Custom GPTs are pretty fantastic. It's something that you can only build with a paid subscription. Again, and it's something you can only do in Chat GPT. I have not built my own yet, but custom GPTs will perform specific tasks based on user-defined instructions or data. It will provide more relevant and accurate responses for very specific applications. So think about comparing a draft proposal against a specific funder's guidelines or rubric, adapting master boilerplate language from your organization for a specific funder's guidelines and character counts, actions like that. Creating a custom GPT will allow you complete control over tailoring that action to you or your organization. But the good news is that there are free custom GPTs that you can take advantage of. So I have probably 7 or 8 custom GPTs that I have pinned to my taskbar, and you can search through the GPTs that are available to find ones that are good for you. But I have one that I specifically use for grant reviewing, so I can upload an RFP, I can upload a specific section of a proposal or an entire draft proposal. And it's pulling from specific resources that are tailored to grant reviewing, best practices from national organizations. So they sort of taken that work out for you. So you can play around with those. But I do have this tool here that will talk you through creating a custom GPT if you do have a paid version of Chat GPT there. So I will stop sharing. Are we all back? And would love to talk more and answer questions. And I think just have a discussion on how people are using AI in their own work, and what you're finding useful, where you may be struggling, and we can talk about that.
I saw a few questions in the chat while you guys are thinking about that. Cecilia, would you like to unmute yourself or do you just want me to read your question? Totally up to you.
I guess I can unmute. Hi, Charlie. Nice to see you. Thank you.
Hi.
Wonderful, fantastic presentation. Very informative. Just wondering about, so I get a little nervous sometimes about uploading what seems to me to be proprietary confidential information in grant proposals onto the web. And I know, who's going to go searching for this stuff, but can you say anything about the protection of data that's uploaded into these platforms?
Yes, that is definitely something that people need to be aware of and careful of because LLMs learn from all of the information that is being uploaded to it. Now, if you have a paid subscription, they generally in the settings will have a click box, do not use my information for training purposes. However, I say that with a caveat. It's best to not put confidential information in any of the services if you don't have to. Now, I say that at my organization, we have invested in an enterprise level GPT, Chat GPT version because we're a hospital and we have, protected health information. That is our only approved tool to be able to put any kind of confidential information in, whether it's patient information or donor information. So in our work and in our development office, we have done a lot of training that, if you're using other tools, you don't want to put any information in there. So, but the information that I am dealing with is not confidential. So that's not, I'm aware of that constraint, as everybody has to be. It's not something that's keeping me from doing my job. There are ways you can de-identify, I want you to, create an outreach letter to, a donor, and here's information about that donor, but you're not giving a donor's name. So there are ways that you can do that that'll still give you useful information, but again, it's something to be aware of. There's more protections if you have paid versions, but I would take everything, with a degree of caution in putting information in there.
Thank you.
And would you say the paid versions are generally better for that, Charlie? Or would you say just because the hospital has really done their due diligence on that, that's why that one is particularly fine, okay.
Yeah, it's the paid versions, if you go through and look at them, they'll say, your information is completely safe, but again, is anything on the web safe? So you do need to be aware of that and careful. I know from my point of view, working with foundation funders, I don't have a lot of the concerns that, say, my major gifts colleagues do when they're working with individual donors. And again, us being a hospital, you don't want to put in a donor's name with a very specific disease that they may happen to have. That's an identifying thing that you don't want floating out there. But there are workarounds, again, that can still give you useful information.
Great, thank you. Allie asked, can you reorganize existing chats into a project? So I think, can you take old chats that you have and reorganize them into a new project? Or Allie, feel free to unmute
Yeah,
yourself.
so we have the
Yeah.
paid Chat GPT version, but what I'm usually doing is making a new chat for each thing I'm working on. But I really liked what you said about organizing projects because it seems like it'll be more organized instead of scrolling through long lists of chats. So I'm wondering if you can reverse that. If I already have all these chats saved, can I somehow put them into a project or do I have to like start it over a project from scratch?
I don't think you can reorganize it, but what you can do is you can copy and download a chat or
Mm.
multiple chats. Like, I don't know, like the length and how many. You can copy it and you can copy it into a document and paste that document into a project.
Okay, and then start that. And it allows you to like
Yeah.
name your projects.
Yes. Yeah. Because I've actually done that between models. I have done some research in Perplexity and I copied and downloaded my whole chat thread, which was pretty lengthy, and I pasted it into Claude because I was taking that information and taking that research. And I said, okay, well, now I want to write this. And I like doing the writing part in Claude. So I said, review this chat and review, I think I uploaded one other document. And I said, and now I want to do X, Y, and Z. So
Okay,
yeah,
I'll give
I
that a
don't,
shot. Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love that. Use those tools.
yeah.
Amy was asking if you could define what a custom GPT is.
Yes.
Is it trained? And Amy, feel free to unmute yourself too.
Yeah, thank you. This is so informative. Could you tell us a bit more about the background of custom GPTs? Is it trained on custom data? Who creates it? Do you have to
Mhm.
self-host it? Like how, etc. Thank you.
Yeah. So to create a custom GPT, you do have to have a paid version.
Oh, okay.
And basically what it is I sort of want to say it's almost like a subset of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is sort of like all the things. And you have a very specific workflow or need that you want to be much more targeted. And you want to put very specific resources into this that it pulls from. So, like I said, I can give you an example. One of the other grant professional colleagues I have that I work with, she works at a disease-specific organization, a national organization. She's created a couple custom GPTs for her team where she is pulling in a lot of organizational information, and she is allowing, she's doing something like one is specifically for proposal reviewing. And she is pulling in sort of best practices in grant proposal reviewing, like at a national professional level, but then she's also putting in very specific information about her organization. So then when any of her team members want to use this custom GPT for that very specific purpose, that GPT already has all of this great background information that is really tailored to that need. But I have found again a lot of free GPTs that are very, very useful, that help me. So I would recommend sort of playing around with the free ones and seeing what you like. And then if you do have a paid version of ChatGPT, you can use the resource that's going to be sent to you for to create something a little more specific.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. Is ChatGPT the only one that offers this? Do any of the other companies or models?
Yeah, they're the only ones that do custom GPTs. I think by creating projects, which many of the models do, I think you can get a lot of the same capability, but not everything.
Great. Sort of related to that, because you said your friend's using AI on the back end for grants reviewing. Nancy was asking if you're seeing that funders are, I know you're not a funder, Charlie, so you might not know, but are funders beginning to establish expectations or policies around AI generated content? For
Yeah.
example, do we need to share if we are using AI?
Yeah. I don't know if anybody else has seen this. I have seen at least one funder who specifically stated that they do not want any of the narrative generated by AI. And I have seen one funder who is like, just, if you use AI for any part of your narrative, just note that. Just let us know. So I think, I, I think funders are very cognizant that people are using AI. Something that's interesting is that there are custom GPTs that help you take narrative and review it and revise it so it doesn't sound like AI, which I thought was really fascinating. Um, I think there are tells in AI writing that you can look for. Um, and I know if you just Google this, you'll see like tells. Like, so we have the M dash, which again really irks me because I love the M dash. Um, there are certain ways that AI tends to generate narrative that happens commonly. So when people see that in writing, they'll be like, oh, AI wrote this. But again, what you can do is in your instructions, either for your model as a whole or in your project, you can say, when you output narrative, I never want you to X, Y, and Z. Or if you're inputting a draft narrative, review this for any phrases that are common in AI generated narrative and, revise it. So, there are ways to get around it, but I think, and I know you see, educators and schools, professors have tools that they can throw students' narratives in and it'll tell them, what's the probability that this was AI generated.
Yeah, and that
So,
Charlie, that's exactly what the line of my question was about, is that professors have that are looking
yeah,
for plagiarism, and what wouldn't funders starting to do that too? So thank you.
yeah.
And when we hosted Meet the Funders in October, we did ask that question, and most of them were not using AI to review grants. And most of them sort of expected, grant writers to be using AI as a tool, as a lot of us are. Um, Allie made a comment in the chat that she was in a training session for Impact 100 and they recommended using AI. So I think funders are sort of embracing it in the same way we are. Andy, thank you for giving some examples of paid AI platforms that give you access to multiple AI engines. And I bet we'll see more of that as they, start to, merge. Um, Laura really wanted you to run through settings, but I see she had to jump off. Does anyone want to unmute themselves? Feel free to jump in while I'm just navigating the chat here. Natalie, I see you had a question. Would you like to unmute?
Sure. Charlie, thank you so much. This has really been interesting. And I would say I've dabbled in some of these models, but certainly not to the degree that you've outlined. And, working at a smaller organization, I'm wondering, when does the ROI kick in for some of the paid versions of these? Seems like we can do a lot with free versions. And just in your experience, what are some of the more compelling arguments for investing in some of these paid versions, more broadly?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth because again, my institution has sort of like the approved version that they have. My sticking point is a lot of the versions will sort of restrict usage so that in a certain time period, you can only upload so many documents. You can only do so many sort of like chat flows, and then it'll cut you off. That's my level of frustration. And part of the reason that I use multiple models that are free, but I do have one paid version. Again, that sort of gives me more, you don't have those restrictions. So I think it's the level of your usage, how often, because it's very frustrating when you're on a really, deep flow and you've been doing stuff and all of a sudden you're like cut off and you're like, oh, you have to wait until 3:30 p.m. to, do anything else. So I do think it's worth investing in at least one model. If you're doing it, like if you're asking your organization to pay for it or whatever, like I think it's the cost of doing business. I think it's as important to our field now as having access to a grants database. So I do think it's very important to have at least one. But again, I get through a lot using just the free versions. Again, hopping to different versions for different things. So it's also dependent on your budget as well.
If I could jump in with regard to paid services, I did post two in the chat, two portals. One is called maxai.me and the other one is called Galaxy. And they're both about a couple $100 a year, and they give you access to all the current versions of ChatGPT, Claude, Grok, Perplexity. Well, actually, MaxAI does not give you Perplexity, but Galaxy will. So you can actually go in and you can side by side and see, you could put in a prompt and have it reference Claude versus Gemini or Claude versus ChatGPT and see the difference in the response. So it's really powerful. And I like Galaxy if you're going to be needing visual things. I like the file structure and the organization of MaxAI because you can create folders that you can drop reference documents into and reference them really quickly. And like I said, they're both about a couple $100 a year, which is a really light lift. And they do give you access to multiple engines in one environment. So those are my go-tos.
That's great. I know when I first was sort of getting started too, one of the things I was doing is I was taking sort of the same prompt chain. And I was trying exactly the same prompt chain in the different models to see, sort of what the difference was.
Yeah, you can
Fascinating.
see that on the same screen, literally. They're both going at the same time, and they will present the output right on the same screen side by side. So you can see exactly in real time the difference.
That's fantastic. I'm pulling it up right now.
And in case anyone missed, the link that Gary shared was a notice supporting fairness and originality in NIH research applications that came out in July. No, I'm sorry. Yes, in July. The purpose being providing guidance to researchers on the appropriate usage of AI to maintain the fairness and originality of NIH research application process, and adding a new policy limiting the number of applications that NIH will consider per principal investigator per calendar year, which is interesting. So I
Yeah,
haven't seen.
thanks for
Go ahead,
pointing that
Gary.
out, Michelle. That second part is particularly noteworthy because the assumption is that you can churn out proposals in a
Yeah.
way you couldn't before these AI tools. Charlisa, thank you very much for this very helpful overview. I did want to ask a sort of probing question. You've made very clear the usability and the benefits of AI, but I wonder if in your work, what have been the drawbacks, the cons, the frustrations, etc.?
I think personally, the frustration at being throttled when I'm doing the work. Again, if I wasn't so cheap and had paid versions, that would be not a problem. I think it's a little more existential for me. I think there's so much capacity and so much good that can come from this, from using AI to make our lives easier. And the education and the adoption aren't moving so quickly. And then the other thing that we were just talking about last week was the whole, oh, AI is going to take my job. And I think as fundraisers, especially, the AI is giving us tools for like the mechanical part of our job, but it's never going to take the place of the humanness of building the connections that are also such an important part of our work. And I mean, it does take a little bit away from the writing itself when you're actually writing and creating something. So I find I miss that a little bit. But the benefit for me of being able to take extremely complicated scientific, NIH proposals that my funders or my researchers want to put in front of private foundations and helping them reframe it in new ways, I think is really exciting. But I would love to hear what you think too.
So I have very limited experience. I've played with some of the tools. I haven't applied it in any direct way to my work, but clearly by my presence, I'm indicating a curiosity about what that potentially could look like. From my limited view, and you can perhaps answer this, it seems like a considerable amount of effort to prompt and train the AI, whereas I could spend that time generating a product that doesn't need extensive tuning and revision in the same amount of time. Granted, I've been at this for longer than I care to admit, and it might be different for someone who's less familiar with the processes, the language, the salesmanship, if you will, of grant writing. What's your take on that, on the what you invest in it, on training, prompting,
Mm-hmm.
etc., versus doing it yourself?
Right. I think I think when people get started, like you and I, like it's you start with a dabbling and you sort of throw stuff in, see what comes out. You don't really know. Then you're like, oh, okay, well, if I do a little more better prompting, I get better output. And, then you get really into the deep things. Like I feel like, well, if somebody had sort of given me that deep framework from the very beginning, that would have helped. But I think, so many people are like learning as they go, as we do it. I I do have to say I don't use it as much for full out narrative generation as I use it for reviewing narrative that has been given to me. Like that's where I find it saves me a lot of time. If I'm taking a 20-page scientific proposal and I put it in with the RFP guidelines or the very specific guidelines, and I say, tell me what you see is missing. Where can I help make this stronger? Here are character counts you need to be aware of. And it gives me an analysis that I can then share with the researcher. Like, so I don't use it to like edit and revise as much as I'm like, look, high level, this section is great. This is very competitive. This section, the funder wants to see this, and you're going in this different direction. Can we reframe this? That's where I'm really finding that it saves me time. That, and I'm using it as a thought partner that, I'm working with this amazing researcher who is focused in this area. I want to identify some foundation funders that are also interested in this area. Tell me, like, what other things are they working on that are sort of aligned? And I'll get really deep into things like that. So I'm finding different ways where it is sort of saving me time and it's giving me a back and forth that yeah, I could get from another person, but another meeting and more time. And it can generate for me a lot of feedback that can help me get deep into something that I find, everybody is so busy. And do you really have time to sit and brainstorm with something? And it'll give me a framework to start from that puts me 3 or 4 steps further than I would be normally, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
I just want to jump in and remind everyone that we will send the recording and all of the resources that Charlie shared, which is wonderful. I think Charlie is available to stay a few more minutes if we still have some questions.
Yeah.
But if you do have to go, then thank you for coming and thank Charlie so much. Charlie, thank you so much. It was very an interesting conversation, and I have a lot of research to do now, a lot of work to do. But more questions while we have Charlie here with us. Deb, I see your hands up. Unmute, please.
I just wanted to add something to what you just said, Charlie, to Gary, which is because I'm a new ChatGPT user myself. I've been very, very resistant. But I had a state grant that I applied for where they had 5 different documents, strategic plans that you had to hit. And I had read all of them and I had the RFP and I was kind of going crazy trying to meld it all. And I thought, why don't I just see if this is something ChatGPT can do? I put in the EBPs, I put in the 5 documents, and I got this pristine list that really helped me in about 1 minute or less. It was incredible. So I would say it's a huge time saver for things like that, plus everything Charlie said.
Good to know.
And Allie, I see your hands up. Feel free to unmute.
Hi. I also kind of responding to Gary and building on what was said. I almost use it in the opposite way of the example that you gave, Charlie, where I'm writing a federal grant right now, that's very technical, 20-page narrative. So I took the RFP, um, and I put it into ChatGPT and I said, please create me a detailed outline, with the scoring criteria built into it as my first step. I got the outline and then I said, okay, now write, me a first draft of a proposal. And we have our brand guidelines in there for Lifeway Network where I work. And it literally within 5 minutes gave me a 20-page outline to start with. And then I write in my own voice. So it saves me the time of writing the outline. It saves me the time of figuring out where to put the most emphasis, where the points are, because it embeds all of that in there. It gives me a first draft, and then I go back and just kind of rewrite in my own words. Um, and it saves me days.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I love hearing how other people use it in our field.
And I'm new. Like I've been probably, we just got our paid subscription like 2 months ago. Like it's pretty new for us. Um, so the learning curve, it kind of goes boom.
I also use it a lot for high level research. Like if I'm working with a new researcher that I don't sort of have the usual suspects for foundations tied up, or I can get really deep and be like, you know, need to find New York City based foundation funders that are focused on youth mental health. And, yeah, could I get it from my database? I could, but it's a lot quicker for me to do that as a starting point.
Can I just jump in with one more thing? The privacy question is a huge concern for me, also, that was addressed earlier. But this is such an enormously time-saving tool, and I'm finding that my clients are using it. So I checked with my clients and I said, if I get the paid version and I do the thing that says, do not feed the model, do not share the data with the model, are you okay with me using it? And they said yes. So I'm proceeding with that. I'm nervous about it because I think that it's our ideas that are really our currency. But it is such an incredibly useful time-saving tool. So there's that trade-off.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions or comments? I mean, Charlie, thank you so much. This was fabulous. I really, really enjoyed
Like I
everything
said,
you said.
I hope everybody can leave with at least one thing that's useful for them. So
So
I
helpful.
definitely
Thank you.
think, yes, definitely think we can. All right, all.
Thank you.
See
all
you.
right.
See you next time. I think we can stop recording. So.